Committee will come to order. I'd like to begin this hearing by stating the Oversight and Government Reform Committee's mission statement. We exist to secure two fundamental principles. First, Americans have a right to know that the money Washington takes from them is well spent. And second, Americans deserve an efficient, effective government that works for them. Our duty on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee is to protect these rights. Our solemn responsibility is to hold government accountable to taxpayers, because taxpayers have a right to know what they get from their government. We will work tirelessly in partnership with citizen watchdogs to deliver the facts to the American people and bring genuine reform to the Federal bureaucracy. This is the mission of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. We appreciate you being here in a joint effort with the Natural Resources Committee to conduct a very important oversight hearing today entitled Missing Weapons at the National Park Service, Mismanagement and Lack of Accountability. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Grijalva, who is here and joining us on the dais. I know that Mr. Tierney and Mr. Bishop, Utah, my colleague, also involved in these two committees, will be joining us here shortly. I'm pleased to hold today's hearing jointly with my friend and gentleman from Utah, Representative Bishop. He's the chairman of the House Committee on Natural Resources, Subcommittee on Public Lands and Environmental Regulation, and I look forward to working with him on an ongoing basis on these issues. Today's proceedings result from a need to further address questions and concerns raised in a June 27th report from this year issued by the U.S. Department of Interior's Office of Inspector General entitled Review of U.S. Park Police Weapons Accountability Program. In the report, the OIG made some very serious charges, including finding insufficient, quote, accountability, accuracy, and oversight, end quote, of the U.S. Park Police's firearms program. During the course of the OIG's investigation, the OIG found, quote, credible evidence of conditions that would allow for theft and misuse of firearms and the ability to conceal the fact if weapons were missing, end quote. Moreover, despite requirements to maintain an accurate firearms inventory, the OIG found that U.S. Park Police firearms inventory records were inaccurate and failed to account for hundreds of firearms. If these findings are accurate, the lack of accountability is completely unacceptable. Given the OIG's glaring findings about the U.S. Park Police's lack of accountability for their weapons program, I am also interested to learn whether the ammunition used by the U.S. Park Police is properly accounted for. The Subcommittee on National Security previously conducted an oversight hearing on April 25th of this year entitled Oversight of the Federal Government's Procurement of Ammunition, in which we found that the Federal Government in some cases has not procured ammunition efficiently or effectively. Based on the seriousness of the charges in the OIG report, the findings warrant further examination where the report fell short. There are a number of questions that would be helpful to explain the findings. Are there examples where U.S. Park Police weapons were actually stolen or misused? How did the OIG arrive at the hundreds of weapons used number? Were simple typographical errors or poor data entry the main cause of the unaccounted firearms? These are all legitimate questions. As a result, today's hearing provides an opportunity to discuss the findings by the OIG and to assess the extent of accountability issues within the United States Park Police. It's also important to further examine the weapons procurement process. The OIG site reviews of U.S. Park Police's field office armories discovered approximately 1,400, quote, extra, end quote, weapons with a force of only 640 officers. These extra weapons consisted of 477 military-style automatic and semi-automatic weapons. According to the OIG, quote, we also discovered a number of weapons that, according to USPP officials, fulfilled no operational need, end quote. It is my understanding that the undetermined number were awaiting destruction. We need to discuss that. I'm also concerned about OIG's finding regarding senior management's supervision of the weapons program, specifically that, quote, staff at all levels, from the firearms program managers to their employees, had no clear idea of how many weapons they maintained due to their incomplete and poorly managed inventory controls, end quote. Moreover, the OIG reported that firearms managers, quote, accepted verbal assurances that firearms inventories were completed correctly rather than taking personal responsibility for accuracy, end quote. Unverified verbal assurances about the accuracy of Park Police firearms inventory is simply not tolerable. The reported lack of accountability over the U.S. Park Police weapons program has been documented as a long-standing issue, I believe starting in 2003. But certainly in 2008 and 2009, the OIG found a lack of oversight of the Weapons Accountability Program, but the problems persist still today. One of the main reasons that we're gathered here today and that I called this hearing in conjunction with these other members is that this continues to evidently be an ongoing problem. Unfortunately, after the reports issued in 2008 and 2009, it does not appear, at least on the surface, that these problems were resolved. And we're talking about firearms. It is very important, and that is why we're here again today. I want to take a moment to emphasize that the hard work and dedication of the Park Police officers is greatly appreciated. We have great men and women who dedicate their lives, put themselves on the line in support of a very patriotic duty in serving their nation and protecting some of our nation's greatest assets. We need to ensure that our law enforcement officers are properly trained and equipped to efficiently and effectively do their jobs. That said, the vandalism that recently occurred at the Lincoln Memorial, the National Cathedral, and the Smithsonian Castle all raise concerns about whether taxpayer dollars are being spent effectively in light of these shortcomings. I find it hard to believe that given the prominence of the Lincoln Memorial, that we don't have somebody 24/7 watching, guarding, taking care of the Lincoln Memorial, that somebody could come and do that and then simply be able to walk away. I'm particularly interested to learn what the U.S. Park Police is doing to ensure that our national monuments will not be defaced, vandalized, or become prime targets of terrorism. I look forward to hearing from all the witnesses today, and today's hearing will focus on the need for proper inventory procedures, improved oversight of firearms management, and we will be touching on the recent defacing of some of our nation's best assets. The committee seeks to ensure that the U.S. Park Police appropriately addresses the OIG recommendations outlined in the June 27, 2013 report. Again, I thank you all for being here, and I greatly appreciate the work I do with my ranking member, the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Tierney, and now recognize him for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the interest of time this morning, I just ask unanimous consent that my opening remarks be placed upon the record.
Without objection, absolutely. We appreciate that. Mr. Grijalva, we appreciate you being hoping we set a trend, yes. We appreciate your being here today. Mr. Grijalva from Arizona is the ranking member of Public Lands and Environmental Regulations Subcommittee in the Natural Resources Committee. We appreciate you being here today. Now recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think the problems identified in the Interior Department's Office of Inspector General require serious consideration. We should try to understand the allegations in the report and not overstate or politicize them. I would like to acknowledge that the Fraternal Order of Park Police has serious concerns with the methodology used by the Inspector General and the allegations made in the report. The title of this hearing, Missing Weapons at the National Park Service, there is no reason to believe that weapons are missing or that weapons were ever in the hands of unauthorized personnel. An Interior Department task force was able to account for all weapons with the exception of a few weapons assigned to officers who are overseas or on extended leave. And the Department has determined that 98% of its weapons were already in the official system. And there's a whole litany of issues, but following the trend set by Mr. Tierney, almost following the trend set by Mr. Tierney, if I may, Mr. Chairman, if there's no objection, enter the letter from the United States Park Police Fraternal Order as part of the record for this hearing.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you very much. The rest of my statements, which were eloquent and well thought out, will be submitted for part of the record. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman. All members will have 7 days to submit opening statements for the record. We'll now recognize our first and only panel. Ms. Kim Thorson is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Public Safety, Resource Protection, and Emergency Services at the United States Department of Interior. The Honorable Jonathan B. Jarvis is the Director of the National Park Service. Ms. Teresa Chambers is the Chief of the United States Park Police. Mr. Robert Knox is the Assistant Inspector General for Investigations with the Office of Inspector General for the United States Department of Interior. We again appreciate all of you being here side by side to have this discussion. Pursuant to committee rules, all witnesses will be sworn before they testify. If you will please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated. Let the record reflect that all witnesses answered in the affirmative. In order to allow time for discussion, we would appreciate you limit your testimony to 5 minutes. My understanding is we have a consolidated opening statement, which we greatly appreciate. But we'll now recognize Mr. Knox first for his opening statement.
Chairman Chaffetz and members of the subcommittees, thank you for the opportunity to testify today about a recent Office of Inspector General report on the accountability and accuracy of the United States Park Police firearms inventory. In short, we found ample evidence that United States Park Police's firearms management requires immediate attention to address the multitude of problems we found, which range from fundamental errors in record keeping to glaring nonfeasance by senior command officers. We initiated our review after receiving an anonymous complaint. We initially set out to determine if the United States Park Police could account for all military-style weapons in its inventory, whether the United States Park Police had failed to perform inventories due to missing weapons, and whether officers may have used United States Park Police weapons for their personal use. Our efforts to definitively address the allegations were hindered by the inability of the United States Park Police property and firearms custodians to provide a reliable baseline inventory and accounting of firearms. The conditions of the United States Park Police inventory were such that would allow for theft and misuse of firearms and the ability to conceal any missing weapons. Having found the firearms inventory program in disarray, we discontinued our efforts to prove or disprove the complainant's allegations and changed our approach to focus on the overall management of the United States Park Police firearms inventory program. Following a consistent history of inaction and indifference on the part of United States Park Police leadership and management at all levels, we again found that the basic tenets of property management and supervisory oversight were missing in their most fundamental forms. Commanders, up to and including the Chief of Police, have a lackadaisical attitude towards firearms management. We found evidence which indicates this indifference is a product of years of inattention to administrative detail and management principles in their most basic form. In 2008 and in 2009, the Office of Inspector General conducted reviews that included aspects of United States Park Police operations, including firearms inventory controls. In our 2008 report, we had a recommendation regarding property management. In 2009, we focused on firearms inventory controls for all law enforcement programs at the Department of the Interior, which included the United States Park Police. At that time, we found and reported on strikingly similar conditions as we note in our current report. Firearms custodians were unaware of the number of guns in their inventory or of the origin of these guns, and that guns physically present were not listed on the inventory. In the end, we have little confidence that the United States Park Police has the managerial commitment to implement a professionally responsible firearms management program without direct and frequent oversight from the National Park Service, the Office of Law Enforcement and Security, and the Office of Inspector General. Among the 10 recommendations we make in our report is a recommendation to initiate quarterly firearms inventories and provide the Office of Inspector General with the results. We intend to conduct a series of future reviews and inspections to ensure that the United States Park Police has implemented our recommendations and that they maintain the level of accountability expected of a law enforcement entity the size and stature of the United States Park Police. Chairman Chaffetz, this concludes my testimony today. I'd be happy to answer any questions you or other members of the subcommittees may have.
Thank you. Appreciate that. My understanding is we have a consolidated opening statement. Would that be you, Mr. Jarvis?
Yes.
Yeah, we now recognize for 5 minutes.
Okay. Chairman Chaffetz, ranking members Grijalva and Tierney, and members of the committee, thank you for the invitation to appear today before you to discuss the findings of the Department of Inspector General's firearms accountability within the United States Park Police. My name is John Jarvis. I'm the Director of the National Park Service, and I'd like to submit our full statement for the record and summarize really our views here. The U.S. Park Police is the nation's oldest uniformed federal law enforcement agency. The Park Police provides law enforcement services to designated areas within the National Park Service, predominantly in Washington, D.C., New York, and San Francisco. The members of the Park Police are professional police officers and dedicated public servants who help us protect millions of visitors each year and protect some of our most valuable national icons, including the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Memorial, the Statue of Liberty, and the Golden Gate Bridge. On June 27, 2013, the Inspector General issued its review of Park Police weapons accountability. The Inspector General's review raised serious, significant concerns regarding Park Police firearms management. The accountability of weapons used by our law enforcement personnel is of critical importance, and we take the issues raised here very, very seriously. The IG report provided a number of important recommendations to address those issues, and we appreciate the IG's efforts. We are committed to implementing these recommendations, which will improve the accountability in this critical area. In the last 30 days since the issuance of the IG's report, we have taken immediate actions to address the IG's recommendations. The first priority was to conduct a thorough physical inventory of all government-owned firearms in Park Police custody in accordance with Recommendation 3 from the IG report. To conduct this physical inventory, we created a team of senior officials from the National Park Service and the Department's Office of Law Enforcement and Security to personally contact all officers within the Park Police and to personally inspect every Park Police firearm, whether issued to an officer or secured in a Park Police facility. The team visited Park Police facilities in San Francisco, New York, and Washington, D.C. With the exception of 3 officers who are currently either deployed overseas on a military assignment or on extended leave, the team has met with each police officer. The team has ensured that each inspected firearm has been entered into and tracked in the Department's new property accountability system. The initial assessment of the team is that approximately 98% of the physical inventory of firearms in the custody of the U.S. Park Police were previously entered into this system. We are continuing our efforts to complete the inventory, including any reconciliation with existing records. The team is also reviewing the Park Police's approach to administrative oversight, training, and coordination. We are committed to ensuring the members of the Park Police maintain the highest standard of accountability with its firearms inventories. With regard to the other recommendations from the IG report, we either have already addressed or are in the process of addressing each one of them. For example, we are in the process of reviewing all Park Police guidance to confirm that it complies with Park Police, Park Service, and departmental regulations, policies, and procedures. The Park Police have ceased using informal property accountability systems, and we have transitioned all of the firearms to our new property accountability system. And the Park Police now has a schedule to ensure quarterly inventories of all firearms. And the Chief of Park Police will personally approve all firearms purchases. That is already in place. In addition, the National Park Service has asked the Park Police to detail all work that has been done to date on all of the IG recommendations and the actions planned to successfully address the ones that have not been completed. The Department's Office of Law Enforcement and Security, which is responsible for policy development, coordination, evaluation, and support of the Department's programs concerning law enforcement, will work with the National Park Service and the Park Police to provide additional oversight. The Office periodically audits the Department's bureaus for compliance with the Department of Law Enforcement policies. Currently, the Office is conducting a program compliance assessment on Bureau firearm programs. We want to assure the committees that the Department, the NPS, and the Park Police take very seriously the accountability of weapons used by our law enforcement personnel. We will work together to monitor compliance with the IG's direction on this matter. Thank you for your attention to this important issue. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Normally when we schedule a hearing at 9 o'clock in the morning, we're in safe territory till 10:30 or so. Today, being an exceptional day, members are advised that there is a vote on the floor. It has 13 minutes on the clock. Given that necessity and priority, this committee is going to stand in recess until the conclusion of the votes, and as soon as we have members back in appropriate numbers, we will resume this hearing. We're guessing that that's an hour and a half, an hour and 15 minutes. It's certainly not any sooner than, say, 10:30. We will resume no sooner than 10:30, but whatever votes and we have members back, we will resume. This committee stands in recess until then.